Yo-ho, Devy Junkies. Brandon here from the Devy Deep Dive podcast and creator of the Devy Dashboard. Welcome to the Devy Huddle. This is just a show every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock on this YouTube channel of me and some dashboard buddies of mine just talking college ball. And pregame, we were talking about how we can't believe that it's already week 8 of the college football season. I've said it week after week. It's going to be over before we know it, but we have a fun show planned for today. We did a 4-round Devy mock draft. It's going to be, there was 8 of us doing a Devy mock for basically the 2022 class through the 2024 class, PPR, tight end premium. So I'm excited to have my guys, man. I just want to appreciate, first off, and say, guys, I appreciate you jumping on with me doing this every Tuesday night. I know everyone has busy schedules. We're here with Dez and Dan and Casey. How you guys doing tonight?
Awesome, man. I'm so pumped to be on the show every Tuesday. Love it.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it, man.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's great. And you guys are always on the Slack chat and supporting it. So it's good stuff. So yeah, so we're going to do a draft and let's just get started here. And I made a rule, right? So to kind of add a little spice to it, we decided, are we going to do the 2022 through 2024 or 2020 3 through the 25 class? We decided to keep it 2022 through 2024. If you got all those 20s down. But I said, I'm going to throw a little curveball. All right. No Bajan, no Boutte, no Henderson. All right. Because I'm pretty sure that those would probably be the first 3 guys very close at the top. So that'll give us a little bit more depth through our 4 rounds. So Joe Murphy, you can see here, he's not with us tonight. But let's see who he chose here at the first pick. And he went with Sam Howell, a pick that I've seen in a lot of recent Devy mocks. I think he is a player who we believe is going to, obviously make it to our dynasty rosters. And guys, chime in if you want. I was looking, I talk about it every week. I always look at a lot of mock drafts before we come in, and Sam's fallen just a little bit, I think, to Matt Corral, and Willis is getting some legs. What do you guys think the chances of Sam Howell being the first guy off the board?
I mean, it's possible. I do think it's going to be Matt Corral personally, with the way he's played this year. He's really shown a lot of improvements in his game, and I just think he has a better all-around skill set. I do like Sam Howell, but I have Willis and Corral ahead of him in my rankings.
Yeah, I do too. I think Sam's played really well, I think, with the fact that he lost a lot of those weapons in the backfield and on the receiving end. But a solid pick. You should make it to our dynasty rosters. So you can't go wrong, especially in a super flex league, grabbing that QB early, especially one that translates, next year versus dipping your toes into the 2023 or 2024 class. All right, Des, you're on the clock at 1.02. I'm very interested. Who are you selecting?
Well, I'm gonna just go with what was just mentioned, Matt Corral. He's been a big riser, to be honest with you. He really, he wasn't really on my radar prior to this season, and I seen him play last year a little bit because he always had big wide receivers that played with him and things like that. But for the most part, he's kind of stepped up this year. And what really surprised me was I think he had 190 something rushing yards last week or something.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Was insane. I was like, I really didn't even expect that out of him. And honestly, when you came and you said, look, let's do this mock, I said, man, I got right here, 102, Matt Corral.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong. I put a tweet out a while back, a couple of them actually, that I think he's the toughest quarterback in all of football. I mean, the guy's just a baller with the ball. I couldn't believe. I think it was over 200, if I'm not mistaken, his rushing yards, which was just insane. So, you know what? I'm hoping my Birds take him. We might, the Birds, if the Colts go bad, and we got Miami's pick, we might have 3 picks in the top 10 next year, not top 15. So if Hurts says, like we were talking about pregame or pre-show here, doesn't pan out, I'd love to see the Eagles make a run for Sam Howell. All right, Casey, at 1.03, who you got?
Yeah, so 1.03, I get a guy that I probably would have, had tough time deciding between him and Matt Corral as is. And, it's risky, in Devy to really pick a quarterback that's not coming up this year. We saw, even with ones this year, Spencer Rattler sort of gone a little sour. And a lot of people had him pegged as the 101, pegged as the Heisman, but I got to go with Bryce Young. He's looked awesome. He plays for Alabama. He's in a solid scheme, solid coaching, plenty of talent around him. He's going to be possibly the 101 in 2023, and I don't see how I could not take him. So that's my pick.
All right. I like it. I struggled with this pick for a little bit because it was either between a quarterback for me, and there was only one I would take here, or I would lean running back, because that's just my way of drafting, especially early in the rounds, especially taking a potential bell cow running back, because I think the wide receiver offers a lot more depth, especially at the elite position, or the players are the better wide receivers. There's a lot more of them than running backs. But I'm gonna swing, and to kind of follow up on what you were talking about, Casey. I agree. It is very risky. I mean, you got the Slovis example. Now you have Rattler, right? You've got you guys, 2 or 3 years is a long time. You never know what can happen. And I may be a glutton for punishment. So I'm actually going to take Malik Williams from Oklahoma. We did this draft actually right before this past weekend, getting ready for the show tonight. And I was felt a little vindicated, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, of the great game that he had on Saturday. But I mean, he's definitely now the guy in Oklahoma. So this was the last quarterback that I was thinking I would be willing to take this early. If I had 2 picks maybe down here, I probably would not have taken another QB. But I think the upside with his rushing ability that he showed this past Saturday, his high school film didn't look great with his arm. But I mean, man, I'll tell you, he made some really nice passes to Jadon Hazelwood this past weekend. And he's got 3 years with Lincoln Riley, 2.5 years with Lincoln Riley to get him ready for the NFL. So, and I say this all the time in my leagues. I have every team that I don't have a good quarterback, I can't compete. So I value that position, especially in a super flex. I think he's like the last potential, blue chip guy, although there's a couple more quarterbacks heading into the draft, this year to talk about. And I think we're going to see one here shortly. But all right, Daniel, enough of me blabbing on. Go ahead. Who you got at 1.05, buddy?
Just a real quick comment on Matt Corral. So I just found out from a coworker of mine that he has a friend who's cousins with Matt Corral. So kind of an interesting little tidbit. I got a little excited when I heard that, and I'm working on getting him on the show. That's my goal.
Oh,
so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Anyways, I went with Treylon Burks here. So I'm a sucker for a guy with the size-adjusted speed that Treylon Burks has. That's the profile that I really like to target at wide receiver. And frankly, there's not a lot of those guys. Last year we didn't have any of them. 2019 was kind of we had a couple of them, which is rare in that regard. We had AJ Brown, we had DK Metcalf. Speaking of DK Metcalf, the guy that reminds me the most of Treylon Burks as far as their games go is DK Metcalf, who is a guy that I'm all over in Dynasty. I'm getting him everywhere I can. And I just think Treylon will adjust well to the NFL. So one thing I saw from him last year, he worked a lot out of the slot, right? They kind of used him like Deebo Samuel has been used in San Francisco. And it looks like, this year they're getting him out on a lot more different types of routes. He's going deep more, and he's just showing his all-around versatility, which I think all but, ensures that he's going to be a first-round pick in the 2022 draft.
Nice. I like it. All right, Christian, him and I were on the chat earlier, and I think he liked this pick. He wanted Malik Willis, and he basically was just talking about how he could be like a potential cheat code in the quarterback position in the NFL. I mean, he's definitely going to get the draft capital. It seems like he's like last year's Trey Lance, right? A guy that, might not go against the best competition, but certainly has that skill set, of the athleticism that I think NFL GM and scouts are really going to think that they can turn him into something kind of like Trey Lance in San Francisco. So Malik Willis, how do you guys feel about that pick right here?
I like it. I mean, at that spot, especially how coming into the season, he was a name that you heard I mean, me being kind of I wouldn't necessarily say I'm one of those people that really dives into a lot of college football, but I can't say that I do follow the names. I feel like I follow the right people that know. And you heard about Malik Willis, and you see different clips and different stats and stuff like that, where you look at it and you want to think that, hey, this is one of those guys that could be one of those risers this year. So I do agree with that.
Cool. Yeah.
I love him too. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Malik Willis. I actually have him and Corral ranked very closely in my rankings. He is able to make throws that no other quarterback in the nation can make. Those off platform, scramble around for 10, 20 yards and then just throw a dime into, the corner of the end zone. It's just ridiculous, some of the plays that he makes. So,
yeah, I guess my thought would be that that's a complete potential pick because, he really has to get more refined in his passing. Obviously, he can run. He's playing at Liberty. The talent he's going up against isn't, amazing, and very similar to that Trey Lance scenario that you talked about before. And there's a difference between a running quarterback and then a quarterback who has mobility. You look at the guys above, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Bryce Young, they all have running ability, but they're not running quarterbacks. Whereas, Malik Willis has sort of made his name as a rushing quarterback. He does have the arm strength, but so I think it's a high potential pick, but very low floor, especially when guys like Isaiah Spiller, those bell cow running backs are available. So.
Yeah, and hopefully, I think Willis is going to be definitely one of those quarterbacks that would benefit from sitting for a year. Maybe getting drafted by a team that has a more seasoned quarterback who can sit and learn. I think that's what the 49ers really wanted to do with Trey Lance, but of course they had an injury and that spoiled their plans. All right, so Sam is not with us right now, but I can tell you right now the first running back is coming off the board, and Isaiah Spiller. He certainly has played well this year, and I like the fact that this pick was a pick for the 2022 class. Earlier in the season, I did a lot of Devy mocks, and I was really surprised how Bigsby and Gibbs were being drafted over Hall and Spiller. So maybe that's just a timing issue with now us getting closer to, with the season half over, people may be valuing the more current class, but solid. This is who I would have picked the first, back off the board. Any of you guys have any additional thoughts?
It's a safe pick. He's pretty much guaranteed, if not day one capital, day two capital, and he has the size, he has the receiving ability. He has an all-around game that you look for in running back. So I don't have a problem with him at that pick at all.
Yeah, I think he's super solid. And for our dynasty rosters, you're seeing it already this year. Running back is just decimated, right? And right now you got people out there trying to give up higher tier receivers and other positions just for a decent running back. I know I've asked for a decent running back in a couple of my leagues more than once, and oh my goodness, you have to pay so much. So to have, sort of a solidified running back prospect that, is pretty good from a metric perspective, you love to see it.
Yeah. All right. Rich has back-to-back picks. I hope he's feeling better. He was going to join us tonight, but he had got sick. Breece Hall, again, I like the fact that it's the 2022 class, next year. And again, look, talking about those Devy mocks. I'm not seeing him in a lot of first round draft capital day one, but I think he's, definitely a day two pick. I think, team like Miami, I don't think we really need to talk about the skill sets of these players. I think Spiller and Hall are at the top of, most people's lists, for the upcoming class. And I'm sure there's another name or two out of the 2022 running back class that are going to be on this list through this four round mock, but solid, again, going, right with those running backs. Let's see who we picked at 2.01 and let's see who we picked. And you went back to back running backs, which I guess you can't, again, Gibbs is 2023 running back at the top of the list. It's either him or Tanks Bigsby for, most people. I like that tandem of backs right off the bat. There is some more depth at wide receiver. What are your guys' thoughts?
I love those picks. Breece is a safe pick, again, just like Spiller. I think you're right, Brandon. He won't get out of day two. And he's a guy that has good size. He had some struggles early on a little bit, but I think he's bounced back some and had some nice games. And Gibbs is my RB2 in the 2023 class, so I love his receiving ability more than anything. I think that will translate really well to the NFL. And he also has pretty decent size, and his rushing production's down, but he's not really running behind a great line, and it's the receiving production is what sells him for me.
Yeah,
sure.
I've seen Jamar Gibbs fall down some boards recently and his value drop a little bit. Like, it's just because he's at Georgia Tech. Like, there's no other real reason. So if anyone's willing to sell him at a discount, like, by all means. Like, you see one game he had like 10 carries for negative 10 yards in. He had like
Against
I don't know,
Pitt.
7 catches for 120 yards. Like, the dude's a playmaker, something like that. I'm not sure it was exactly that, but if he's out in space, he's a weapon, and the NFL has shown that they love those players.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead, Des.
No, I definitely agree on both of those picks, and then definitely with Jahmyr Gibbs. He might be having a down year, but I still believe in the skill set, and especially how the NFL is right now. When you have pass catching and running backs and things like that, like I really still like him. I'm not going to go off of just having a down couple games and things like that, though.
Yeah, I would completely agree, without a doubt. All right, Sam Crampton, let's see who he picked. He selected Garrett Wilson. All right, so we got our second wide receiver off the board. There's a quality pick. Again, he's going to be in the NFL next year. There's no chance you think Wilson comes back, do you?
I don't see it. I think he's guaranteed first-round draft capital. I think he comes out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, I did see him in a lot of mock drafts in the first round, but hey, there's not much you can say of the Wilson. He's him and Olave are just dominating at Ohio State. What I'm more interested in is next year it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when those two leave. I think that's when that Ohio State wide receiver crew is actually going to get exciting. Everyone didn't think Olave would come back. That was a surprise, just like Devonta Smith did. But Garrison Wilson has been, just tearing it up. He has all the athleticism, can win all over the field. I think it's a great pick, great safe pick. Any thoughts, guys?
I love it. It's really good value right there for Garrett Wilson. I love his contested catch ability. He's got that playmaking ability. He just makes plays all over the field. Love it.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see who Christian took here. And he took Tank Bigsby, the other 2023 running back off the board. Again, safe pick. You got to run on these running backs early because there is a tier drop that is coming soon. So I think that's just a good, solid pick. He starts off with a quarterback and then follows it up with a solid, running back. So Tank Bigsby is probably who I would expect to come off the board here. There could be one other player that I think could be, and I have a feeling Dan's going to take him.
Yeah, I am actually. Before that teardrop happens, I'm going to take Zach Evans. And I actually like Zach Evans better than Tank Bigsby. I wouldn't say I'm down on Tank Bigsby, but he's right behind Evans for me. Evans is a guy that, look, he was highly recruited. He was top 3 in his class coming out. For that draft class out of high school, man, he's just got all the athleticism, the size, the speed. He has that playmaking ability. Immaturity questions arose for him early on in his college career. And I'll be honest, game 1, he's sitting out the first half of the game because of a disciplinary reason or whatever it was. And that concerned me a little bit, but it seems like he's turned it on. I know he didn't play last week. Hopefully there's nothing lingering there, but he's just a guy that I love his all-around game, and I think he's going to be, at least he has a chance to be a high draft pick come 2023.
Yeah, this is where the teardrop was for me. I was hoping he fell to me at the next pick, but why didn't he play this past week? Does anyone know? I didn't read any news.
I didn't really look into it that much, to be honest. I was caught up in so much of the other stuff.
Okay.
I think we would have heard about it if it was something serious. So hopefully it's just a minor ailment or whatever.
Right. My next pick here is probably one that is a little shocking to people. But I went with Jahan Dotson. I think I could have went with some more flashier names, but again, I'm going to lean towards the guy that I'm hopeful will be on my dynasty roster next year in some capacity. He's not the flashy name, but I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. I think, he's the complete package for me in a wide receiver. He's got sticky hands. He has 0 drops on the season. He wins vertical. He doesn't have the 40 time speed, but I think his play speed is good. A lot of, I've been cutting up a lot of film on him because I'll be doing an off-season, film study on him. And I like what I see. He doesn't have the high 40, like I said, the low 40 time, but what his play speed is I think really impressive. And what I really, really like about him, he's got some yak ability, but I love his play strength. It's something more just watching football players. I look for the guys that can break tackles, even the wide receivers and the yak ability at the contested catch point, or, just going up for, even if it's a bad pass and you've got to make he's got the body control to make the adjustment. He's made some fantastic catches in his career. So he's probably a name that I could have gotten maybe in the lower rounds. So what do you guys want to, what are your thoughts on the pick by me? And
what do you think his 40 time is, Brandon?
Just because I'm the host doesn't mean you can't beat me up a little bit. So
what do you think he runs? 4.5?
I think so. I kind
of see him in that range, and I actually love the pick, man. You sold me on him early in the off season when I started, when I jumped into the channel and started following your stuff. I was sold pretty quick watching some film on him, so I'm a big fan. I think it was a great pick.
Cool.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a reach, but I love Jahan Dotson. I just hope that the NFL does too. I hope that he tests well enough for them to love him. And he, if he could get just day 2 draft capital and make sure that happens, I think that would really bode well for, him on our dynasty rosters. But watching him play is just a lot of fun, and he's a consistent dude.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Jahan too, though. I really do.
Oh, you guys are just buttering me up, man.
No. I mean, at the.
Hey, I told you it was a reach.
I can.
Yeah, you are.
At the 205, I can understand where Casey was saying is it's a little of a reach, but he's still solid. He's solid there though. That's a solid pick, especially with what you have coming up. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about what you think and what your preference is. And then you evaluate these guys, and it's all what you want to do as far as how you think how you want it to do. So, at the end of the day, that was a solid pick, though. Honestly.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. So, Casey, who you got at the 2.06?
I got a receiver I like even a little bit better, actually a lot bit better than Jahan. I have a guy that I'm so glad fell, David Bell from Purdue. I know a lot of people aren't wowed. He doesn't have, that one thing that, just can beat everyone. He doesn't have the super high end speed. He doesn't have the super high end size, but the guy just racks up production. And honestly, from an analytical standpoint, he's one of the best receivers in this draft. So I just love it. I know a lot of people are knocking him because he plays for Purdue, but we see what Rondale Moore's doing in the NFL, and I'm not going to say he's Rondale Moore, but at the 206, I'm seeing a guy who I'm pretty darn confident is going to get at least day 2, possibly day 1 draft capital. So that's my perspective. I love him as a receiver and will happily put him on a ton of my dynasty rosters, hopefully.
I like it. All right, Des, who you got at the 2.07?
I got Drake London.
I like it.
Honestly, my first 2 picks, these were two guys that I really wasn't on my radar to start the season. I was hearing, well, not really with Matt Corral, but Drake London, it was really he had I want to say he had a lackluster last season. I mean, you had to say with the college football season, it was kind of crazy anyway. So you kind of gotta throw that away, kind of. But I mean, he's come into the season this year and has, to be honest, from what I've seen, has just been killing. I don't know if it's the competition and things like that, but just the target share and just him just being able to go up and get the ball and things like that. He just kind of showed me that he kind of could be someone that can continue to rise and be a good prospect to go on to your roster this year, honestly. after this year, honestly, into the draft.
There's a lot of Mike Evans comps I see.
Yeah.
With Drake London. You guys see that?
Yeah.
They do have similar body types and playing styles, so I can certainly see that.
Yeah,
that's what kind of really sold me on them, because some of the stuff I just been seeing, just the clips that just been put out there on Twitter, and then just the chatter that's been on the dashboard and things like that. It just it made me kind of take a look again, and he showed me some things. He really showed me some tools that I really like, to be honest. And it's like, man, I really need to kind of dive in a little bit more. I'm trying to get better with understanding and looking at these prospects and seeing who can come to my NFL roster, from my Devy picks.
Yeah, he certainly has played well on the outside this year. I think that was one of the things, I'd made an off-season film on him, was he played out of the slot. So we were all waiting to see what he looked like outside. And he certainly, has been Slovis's main target. He's just so, tall and big, and, and he looks good with the yak and everything. So I'm with you, Des. I last year I was a little down on him. I thought he was like overhyped just because of the production, because last year he caught a lot of balls just, in the middle of the field, finding gaps in zones out of the slot. Like, he never had to beat anyone one-on-one, but I think this year he certainly has made, he's got to be a space creation. That's what it's all about. He's certainly doing well in that department. But I just put a game out on Utah. I mean, he had like 20 something targets or something. So kudos. FF here says a Vincent Jackson comp to London too. So it's that height. And he's certainly physical enough too. All right, let's see who Joe picked here to round out the second round. Joshua Downs, a hot name right now. Not surprised. And, going back to my pick with Dotson, like, I thought about Josh Downs, and I know he's like the new flavor right now. He's the shiny new toy. I don't know. I just felt like Dotson was a safer pick. I like Joshua Downs. Again, he's going to be one of those fast guys. He's certainly been productive with Sam Howell. Any thoughts on Downs, guys, here?
I think it's a great pick. I really like what I've seen from Downs. He has, I think I've talked about this before on here, he has that profile that a lot of NFL teams seem to be looking for right now, that smaller, quicker, slot type guy that can create in space, get the ball in his hands in space and let him work. And he just, he's certainly stepped up his game a lot, being the main guy there in North Carolina. So I really like him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and similar to Drake London, he's just the playmaker for that team. They're not alike in their play style at all, but he's the guy week in, week out, just racking up the yards, and you love to see it. And like you said, the size concerns that we used to have for a lot of these receivers are sort of going by the wayside, I guess. At least the NFL is telling us they don't really care.
Yeah, it's nice to see Henry Ruggs kind of emerging a little bit. People just had no patience anymore. And now for Vegas, he's starting to pop a little bit. So
I picked up so much Ruggs this offseason cheap, man. I love seeing that.
Yeah,
me
that's
too.
great.
That's funny.
That's awesome. You guys are smart. It takes time for these guys in the NFL. Everyone wants instant production. All right, let's see who else Joe took here. And okay, we got our first tight end off the board, Michael Mayer. I don't think there's much to debate about him. He's pretty much, the tight end one now in Devy, and you're gonna have to wait one more year. But I think without a doubt, he's probably the number one tight end on everyone's board at this point. With Mr. Bowers from Georgia, slightly, creeping up behind him after this past weekend with that like insane game. All right, Des, at the 3.02, who you got?
Yeah, well, Bowers has definitely been surprising. I would have to say about that.
Oh yeah,
he's been phenomenal.
He came out of nowhere.
yeah, honestly, oh man. But Kenneth Walker, I went here with the 302. He's another one that, as you can see with my picks, and just like I said from the beginning, these are people that I'm picking, or these are players or prospects that I'm picking that I just wasn't on my radar. In the beginning of the season, that just has rised up and just played so well. And with him transferring to Michigan State, he's been running the ball really, really well. The way he's been playing in that offense, he just looks like somebody that could kind of continue to work well, maybe go in the combine and test pretty, good and get on a team where he can kind of contribute and hopefully do something with him having a good season.
I think there's so many roles available in the NFL for backup running backs. I really feel that way. More and more teams are going with a committee. It's just looking like, Herbert on Chicago this week.
Yeah,
These guys land in these spots, and I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot. I'm just like the Eagles taking Gainwell and for being these second tier backs that are going to just chip in and help out, and they're dynasty assets, especially with the injuries. It's like all of a sudden you got an RB1 when one of them goes down. So I'd love.
Yeah, he has the patience, man. It's eerily similar to Le'Veon Bell. Watching him run and just the patience he has behind his line, and then he explodes, man. He's had some really impressive long runs this year. I was surprised how fast he is.
Yeah, it's amazing how his new situation has made such a difference, because if you've really watched his film last year, it wasn't great.
I remember that, because look, it's crazy because I watched a lot of that. And then to see him this year, because like when I first joined the dashboard, that he was one of the guys that that was kind of talked about a little bit, and then you kind of see it's like it's not really. I don't see it. And then this year it's just been like a light and day. It's been crazy.
All right, Casey, at the 3.03, who you taking here?
Yeah, this one's definitely a little bit more risky. It just goes sort of with the strategy that I've employed as of late, and that is just reaching down the years a little bit and getting the guys that I think have the elite talent. I find myself every single year looking back and being like, oh my gosh, Bijan Robinson, the first year he came in, he was going, second, third round of Devy startups. How did I not take this guy earlier? Same thing with Travion Henderson. He was taken in second, third round and considered a reach. And now it's like, I see Quinn Ewers, he snuck into the class, and maybe it's a little bit of a cheat here at this 2023 limiter on this draft, but I got to grab Quinn Ewers and hope that he becomes the star of the future.
I like it. Responding to a comment here. Someone's talking about Jamison Williams. Okay. It's my pick, 3.04. And I'm going with Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm going back to the Ohio State well. I think I'm super excited to see Olave and Garrett Wilson move on. And I think Smith-Njigba is going to be the Boutte of next year. I think he's going to explode. I think he's going to be the guy. I know wide receiver. It's wide receiver U at Ohio State. I get it. There's like 5 guys that are like behind him also looking for targets. But as we've seen in Ohio State, they really target their senior players on their team. I think he's starting to pop. He's that, jack of all trades receiver, just like, we were talking about earlier. Who were we talking about earlier? That was like Josh Downs. I think this kid's got the whole package, and coming from Ohio State, he should have great quarterbacks tossing him the ball, which is only going to help his production. But I've been really impressed with his play so far this year. So I'm super. I think this is really good value. It was a little safer with the Dotson pick, but here I'm going to reach a little bit. Not so much of a reach, but I'm excited next year. I think he's going to go through the roof, and my value for his stock here in the 3rd round, I think next year he'll be a 2nd rounder.
Yeah, I just hope it's him, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Emeka Egbuka. Like, just line those 3 up and just have Ohio State destroy again.
There you go. I love it. All right, Daniel, who you got at 3.05?
Man, I robbed you on Zach Evans, and you robbed me on Jackson Smith-Njigba. I was really hoping to get him there. I almost took him at the 205 or 204, actually. But yeah, great playmaker. Love Jackson Smith-Njigba. But I went with Kyren Williams here. So we were talking about running backs that can earn a role on a team, right? Do I expect Kyren to walk right into a 3-down role in the NFL? No, I don't think that's the likely outcome for him. But I do love his versatility. I think he can earn a role on a team. I think he has that all-around package, kind of like what we were talking about with Jahmyr Gibbs, right? He's got that receiving ability. He's tough between the tackles too, man. For a guy that's, 200 pounds soaking wet, I'm not sure what he's going to weigh in but at the combine, but, he's not the biggest guy, but he's built. He's compact, and he runs hard. And his receiving ability, though, and his route running, I think, is what will set him apart and earn him a role. And I've been on record as saying that I see his ceiling as Austin Eckler. And if that's a ceiling play, that's a ceiling play I'm willing to take in the third round of any Devy draft. So.
Yeah, and you know something else he's got going for him? Last year, I put out a couple tweet films on him. His pass blocking is exceptional.
Absolutely, and that's what teams are looking for, right?
Absolutely.
I try to view it through the lens of a scout. You know what I mean? When I'm watching film, and that's definitely something that we don't talk about enough. That scouts are going to be looking at pretty hard there. So,
right, if he can pass protect, he's going to definitely play.
Gets him in on third down.
Yeah. He's exceptional at it. He really works at it. So, all right, Christian, let's see who Christian picked here. He picked Xavier Worthy. I was waiting for the current Devy darling, as I like to call them, to see where he was going to come. He is the current Devy darling, at least in the wide receiver position. I mean, his production with Sark at Texas has been phenomenal. He is the wide receiver 1 on that team. I've even heard that he is the wide receiver 1 in that 2024 class. I don't know in 2 years if that's going to be the case, but certainly this year, who's flashed out of that 2024 wide receiver class, he certainly has put on a show for all of us. And what we do is we all get hook, line, and sinker with the production. And it's hard not to love this kid. What are your guys' thoughts on Worthy?
The freshman breakout is insane for this guy. I mean, from an analytical standpoint, people are going to love him. All I can say, I guess, in the end is thank God he transferred from Michigan and didn't end up going there, because he would not be doing this, I expect, from Cade McNamara. So,
right.
The early production's impressive. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brendan.
No, I was just going to say, that's I think situation matters so much for these kids. You know how many wasted talents. I put a tweet out today about Roma Dunze. I'd love to see that guy get moved and go somewhere else. I think that kid can play, but I mean, he's in Washington. So not to get off subject, but I completely agree with you. I mean, situation and context matters for these kids. There's so many talented players that never get the shot and the opportunity because they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Go ahead, Dan. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that I love the early production. And like Casey was saying, that's going to be big in the analytical community. As far as that 2024 wide receiver class, I think we're going to get some surprises certainly next year. I can't wait to see those Alabama boys, Corey Brooks, G. Hall, all those guys, because Alabama always starts them out slow. So we'll be talking about that class a lot more.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right, the 3.07 goes to a Carson Strong. So again, he is, he's somebody that for me personally, I look, there's no denying the arm talent that this guy has. And, I've kind of knocked him on his mobility because he really looks uncomfortable moving around the pocket. But, I'm kind of softening my stance on that, only looking at Mac Jones and his success in New England right now. The fact that, he wasn't the most athletic guy, although I thought Mac Jones was more athletic than most people gave him credit for, and he can certainly maneuver around the pocket. But I'll tell you what Carson Strong probably has for him better than maybe all and everybody in this class is what's in between the ears. And that really makes a lot of, his decision-making has been very good. He's got the strong arm. It's just that lack of mobility, I think. How do you guys view the NFL draft scout community? I've seen some websites, by the way, that have him as the number 1 quarterback in the class. So there are drafts out there that people are again, that's because I think he's got the intangibles, that you guys know that I talk about that all the time, that maybe is going to lead and, to him being an early pick over, the Malik Willises and stuff like that. What do you think the chances are that he is, one of the first guys taken before Sam Howell and before Malik Willis?
I think his medicals are really going to come into play. And if that knee, he's got that knee issue that people keep talking about, teams are going to be looking at that closely. You don't want a quarterback with bad knees in the first round. So that's one thing. The mobility, certainly a bit of a concern, but he does have, he can sling it, man. He's got great arm strength and perhaps the biggest arm of the 2022 quarterbacks that we're talking about now, because Rattler is no longer currently in that conversation. So
Yeah.
I like him, but I'm not in love with him. I like him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's a solid prospect, but if you're not going to have mobility, you need to be an elite passer. He's a really quick release from what I saw, and maybe he can polish up some edges and be a really good passer in the NFL eventually. But I just don't see elite there. So
Mm-hmm.
getting better as a passer. I mean, I feel like he has a strong arm and things like that. But it's funny, Carson Strong, but as far as just polish, he just gotta get more polished with everything. To be honest with you, for me, I haven't seen a lot, but I that's what I see that from the little bit I've seen though.
Yeah, all the tweets that I see with him throwing these long passes and stuff, he's always had a clean pocket. He's always throwing from a pocket that's super clean where there's been no rush in his face. So that's another thing I question. If you can't move around and all of a sudden you're drafted by a team with a shitty offensive line, that it's like a sieve. I mean, that could be a recipe for disaster if he doesn't have any kind of mobility. All right, Richard here rounding out the third round, and he has CJ Strong taking it to 3.08. So he took CJ Strong. He's rebounded after kind of a little rough start. But as I said, he was on one of my earlier podcast episodes, he was a sell for me. I did like a buys and sells only because I felt of the pressure that he was under to play with, given the two men behind him that are just dying to take his job. But he seems to have rebounded after that shoulder surgery. He's playing well, but I don't think a lot of his throws have been exceptional. But I think he's a solid QB. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on Stroud?
I'm having a tough time ranking that 2023 quarterback class behind Bryce Young right now. Mm-hmm. Stroud is certainly up there, but there's a lot of factors that could come into play for him. After he'll likely finish the season as a starter. What happens next year? Does he get that starting job again? Does he transfer somewhere else? Certainly some things that he can improve on. I know he's had a few games that were a little rough. At least the first half of some of those games were, and he kind of turned it on after that. But like you said, he's rebounded a little bit. He's got some good things that I like. Again, he's just not a guy I'm itching to get on my Devy rosters right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to tell in Ohio with all the talent that they have coming in there. I mean, heck, some of these throws he makes, it's like, oh man, I just have to get over to the linebacker and my receiver's going to run with it. Like,
yeah,
it's not really too much of a challenge there. But he definitely has some tools, and hopefully he continues to put it together. He's looked good as of late.
Yes, he has. All right, let's see who Richard takes in the beginning of the fourth round. And he is taking Mr. Will Shipley. Solid pick. He certainly has produced this year, and should be the guy really moving forward in Clemson when he gets back on the field. So I think it's a safe and solid pick to fill your running back role. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like what Casey said earlier, right? You get those guys early. I think Will Shipley definitely has the chance to be one of the elite 2024 running backs. One of the top three in his class when it comes to that draft. So why not? I think there's risk, certainly, drafting a running back that hasn't done a whole lot yet, but he's highly ranked. He's highly recruited. I like it. I like it there at the 401.
Before he got injured, I mean, the team was just coming around to seeing that, hey, this guy's extremely talented, and we probably should play him over the guys we have, like Kobe Pace. And then there was what's his name, Linjay Dixon, before he transferred out. Right. I mean, they were just figuring that out. And no, if he comes back from that injury, he'll be fine. He'll be hopefully back to churning, because I mean, he's going to put Kobe Pace back on the bench.
Yes, he will.
Yeah.
All right. I know Sam is disappointed he's not here to talk about his favorite player, but he took Sean Tucker. Certainly a guy who is rising in the Devy. He is probably the running back Devy darling at this moment. Certainly just being productive week after week. I put 3 films out on this YouTube channel with film breakdowns on him. Certainly an impressive making those films. He's certainly appears to have the goods. So I think that's a solid pick. Again, with the depth at wide receiver, taking a running back here, especially for a guy who's rising in the ranks, hoping for future value. But, it looks like he's got the skill set to continue to rise as a Devy asset. So what are your guys' thoughts on Sean Tucker?
Love him. I mean, how do you not like this guy? He's got NFL size already. He had NFL size last year, actually. He's got the speed necessary. I mean, he breaks tackles. He's got a track background. Like, he's everything you want, other than, really where he's playing. But the good news is, I mean, they do play against some decent competition. He's showed out against Notre Dame. He's done well against Clemson. Like, I mean, the guy is really putting it all together. And the only thing that's a little strange is, his post-game tweets, which are a little bit funny. I don't know if y'all seen them, but I look forward to those. Definitely a little odd, but enjoyable.
Yeah, Tucker. Yeah, man, he's a fucking baller. I've moved him up to number 5, I think, in that class for me. He just produces every week, and I just love that he continues to produce at a high level like that. Again, kind of came out of nowhere, caught some of us by surprise, but I really like his all around skill set.
I love players like that, though.
Oh yeah, for
to be honest with you, that come out of nowhere, because to be honest with you, we're doing this like 24/7, 365. This is, especially if we're really into this like this, and to find somebody that come out of nowhere that rise like that, that's why I like this. I really do. Yeah,
I like it when they were on my C2C leagues.
Yeah.
When I have them on my roster, I don't like it when I don't have any shares. So there's a difference, right? All right, Christian. Let's see who Christian took here. Another running back riser who's going to be a very interesting, I think, NFL prospect. Zach Charbonnet. Talk about going from being a Devy asset to being in the trash heap to now being back as a favorable Devy asset. This is certainly a cruel game, but I mean, for UCLA, he's just tearing it up. He's got the size, he's got the pass catching ability. He's doesn't have the best speed, but certainly enough play speed. I think he definitely has a role in the NFL. Given the situation, I think he'd be a great committee back in the NFL. What do you guys think of the pick here?
I think it's a shame Christian isn't on, because I would have told him. I apologize for the first episode. I was like, man, he only had 6 carries and 3 touchdowns in his first game. Sell him now, get what you can. And Christian's like, no, hold. His value is going to continue to go up, and it has.
Yeah,
he looks good. He's still big. He still runs upright a little bit, but he's definitely tearing up, the Pac-12. So, I mean, can't hate on it. Not at the 403 for a running back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, he has a solid chance to earn day 2 capital, and he really does have that size, pretty good speed for his size too. Mm-hmm. And that again, that third spot, that RB3, is kind of wide open right now. I have Kyron there, but it could easily be Charbonnet. It could be Kenneth Walker. A lot of guys in that range that are worth taking a shot on.
I think that'll be something interesting. Is he going to come out this year, or is he going to wait until next year? I've heard some talk, going both ways, and I'd really prefer if he came out this year compared to next year. I'd really not like a Zamir White situation.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, well, we'll see. All right, Daniel, at the 4.04, who you got?
I was actually hoping this guy wouldn't fall to me, because I knew I was going to have to take him if he did, just from a value perspective. DJU, and I'm not even attempting to say his last name, so please don't ask me. He's, I don't know what to say at this point. You know what I mean? His value has tanked quite a bit. He has not looked anything like the prospect we thought he was going to be, at least this year. That whole Clemson team is just a disaster right now. I don't think anybody predicted they would be this bad. But he can improve. He doesn't really, his wide receivers are not great. I'm really not a big Justin Ross guy personally. I don't think he has like a slot guy, somebody that he could just get the ball out to that would help him out a lot. But he's still a highly rated prospect, right? Highly recruited guy that has all the size and athleticism you could ask for in a quarterback. Like if we could just build one in a lab, that's what he would look like. Hasn't translated to the field yet, but he has another year next year, right? The rest of this year. But then I think next year we could see a big improvement from him. He could really improve his draft stock again. And he's worth taking a shot on here in the 4th round of the Devy draft for sure.
Yeah. And he'd be, it's interesting. Maybe I'll put a tweet out tomorrow if he's a buy or a sell. I mean, some guys that are probably already given up on him, and other people, like you, Dan, who say, hey, let's not. I mean, it's a tough position. Everyone's so damn impatient. Everyone just wants instant production from freshmen, from the rookies, and he just might be a great buy low candidate right now. If he can continue just to get a little bit better in another off season, but the pressure that these kids are under at their age, I think we all lose sight of that. It's freaking enormous, So my pick is next, and I went with a guy that last year I wasn't a big fan of, but here at the end of the draft, I went with Chris Olave because at this point in the draft, instead of taking a shot with a guy, 2024 class or 2023, keeping my fingers crossed they translate, I know Chris Olave is going to make it to a dynasty roster. He's getting the draft buzz from all around the draft community. He's been productive. We were all concerned about him coming back for that senior year. But I think he's going to follow in the footsteps of Devonta Smith. It's not going to hurt his draft stock one bit. The kid just gets open. I've often wondered if his game wasn't more of a production of an Ohio State offense versus him creating space, but I've been trying to watch more of him, being that I was so critical of him a couple years ago, and he just gets open. And here in the 4th round, I'd rather take a shot with a guy that I know is going to hit my dynasty roster, because I play all C2C and Devy leagues really for the dynasty roster, not so much for the college side. So here I'm going to take I think like an easy pick. I think it's great value for a guy that I know is not going to get out of the day 2 draft capital and have that on his resume. So I'm going with Chris Olave. Casey, who you got at 4.06?
So at 406, I was looking through the list and I'm not really seeing much I love, but I knew it was going to be a reclamation project. It was either going to be, Rattler, Lloyd, or Milton. And I'm going to go with Milton. I think, with Zamir White there, he's still vulturing a share of his workload that we expected might go to Milton. I'll be honest and say Milton hasn't looked great with the carries he's had, and he's had, a fair number of them. So that's a little bit worrying, but, the Georgia pipeline, it's going to continue. They are probably getting in a freaking awesome freshman next year, hopefully Branson Robinson. But I think they continue to give it to the guy who obviously has seniority, and I think Kendall Milton's going to get that shot. So, high recruit running back here at the 406, I'm going to stick with it. Maybe we'll get a Charbonnet situation.
Yeah, I like it. I just did, me and Corey P did a film study on him. I mean, we really like this game. And so not much of a pass catcher, which might knock him a bit, but, he certainly has the size and physicality and great contact balance, and, he's got the size. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, next year should be his shot. So it should be interesting if Trey Sanders gets any more looks too, just being like really over that hip injury. So Des,
those Georgia, sorry, just real quick. I was going to say those Georgia backs are just really kind of frustrating, to be honest, man. They always rotate backs. We all, we want somebody to step up and be the guy, and they just continue to rotate 3-4 backs every game. And you mentioned pass catching, but they don't really use their backs as pass catchers. I remember, or I think it was the last game, I saw Zamir catch a ball and take it 15, 20 yards, make a couple guys miss, and I'm just thinking, throw him the damn ball more. Right. Because I'm a Zamir guy too. I don't think they utilize their backs in a way that we want to see, at least. How the NFL views it might be different, but
they only use one, and his name's James Cook. So they only bring him in for the catching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's why none of us drafted Bowers, because they don't throw to their tight ends either. And no one thought, if anyone out there watching the show, if you drafted Bowers and said he had the skill set, you're full of shit. So, all right, Des, you're at the 4.07, buddy. Why don't you get us back to the finish line here?
Yeah, for my 407, I went with Quentin Johnson. This is kind of one of those picks there. It may not been, one of those picks where people will pick this guy here. I mean, we still have some people on the board like Rakim Jarrett and Spencer Rattler and things like that. Regardless of how bad Spencer Rattler has been playing, he got his spot took and things like that. But I went with Quentin because I just really like what I've seen lately. He didn't really start off too well. He had some subpar games and things like that, but just that, especially that last game against Oklahoma, it just kind of showed me that where he could possibly be, and with someone with his skill set, height, weight, size, he can go up and get the ball and things like that. I really like that. He looked like he could be a good yak guy too. So hopefully he can build off of that and be one of those top 23 guys.
I like it.
Good value pick right there.
Yeah,
I think that's good value for him.
I thought about him or Olave, but I was like, you know what? I know Olave is going to make it to my dynasty roster. So here in the 4th round, I wanted more of a short thing than waiting another year and a half, and God knows what can happen.
Yeah.
All right. So Joseph, his last pick is a guy that I'm glad he kind of picked so we could talk about him, because me and Corey and Britt on the dashboard. We're going to be doing our first film grind, our next film grind. We're going to be doing on Jamison Williams. So he's going to, a guy that is, transferred, I believe, from Ohio State, right? And, is now, again, we talked about it earlier. Situation matters. I mean, there he was buried in the depth chart, goes over to Bama, and all of a sudden he's the number one kind of receiver. I think he's got more production than Mechie. I'm not 100% sure, but if not, they're neck and neck up there. So I think this is a great pick. I think it's a risky pick, but I mean, I like it. What do you guys think?
I almost picked him there. I almost picked him at the 407
cool.
at my spot, to be honest with you.
Nice.
Just because you gave me a hard time last time we was on this way about my Bama love and things, but I just love how he came over there and actually took over the show. To be honest with you, and that says a lot because you have the situations with the other receivers, and then you have the whole cryptic Agai Hall tweet this week. So it just was a little crazy to see that and know that this guy's been coming over, and he just came out and all he's been doing is producing. So he's definitely a riser, and I like that pick there. He's
a junior now, isn't he?
I believe he is. Yeah. And that's a talented receiving core there. You know what I mean? Alabama they churn them out. So for him to walk in as a transfer and earn that kind of target share is really impressive. Yeah. I'm excited that he's not in any of the Devy leagues I'm in. Nobody currently rosters him, so I'll be targeting him come the off season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man, that wraps up our 4-round, 8-team draft. I'll just run this through one more time. I appreciate you guys joining me for tonight's show. For anyone watching this YouTube channel and the show, I'll put this in maybe a different format and put it as the cover. But yeah, I guess I probably should have put this across where all the names were on at the same time, but I wanted people to be able to see it too on their phones. So any final thoughts, guys? We got to soak up every week, man. Every week.
It's going to be over soon. I love it. This was a lot of fun. I love that we did this for one of the shows.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do film grinding shows on here. I've got all sorts of ideas where I'm gonna do the screen share thing, and we're gonna stop and talk about film.
Love that.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I got all sorts of stuff in this brain of mine that I'm always churning and working on. So
yeah, this has been awesome, man.
I appreciate you guys. I really do. Like I said, this whole Devy dashboard thing was to create more of an intimate community. I mean, I like Twitter, but at the same time, I enjoy the Slack chat and the more private conversations anyway. So all right, man. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks. We'll see you.
Thank you.
All right.